When I was 5 years old, my mother always told me that happiness was the key to life. When I went to school, they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. I wrote down happy. They told me I didn't understand the assignment, and I told them they didn't understand life. John Lennon. Hi there. Welcome to the show. My name is Jessica Disbrow. I'm a licensed social worker and registered psychotherapist here in the state of Colorado. I'm also the founder and primary therapist of Higher Consciousness Healing. We're a small private practice in Lakewood, Colorado, which offers empowering and holistic psychotherapy services to youth and adults. For more information about our practice, please check us out on the web at www.higherconsciousnesshealing.org. Right now you're watching our live video blog where we talk about different mental health topics from a spiritual and scientific perspective. So welcome. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to ask them during the show, and I'll try and respond at the end. Today, we are covering something pretty big. The meaning of life, God, and the universe. Now, we've talked about Freud and Jung and their beliefs on what drove human behavior. Freud believed we were really driven by our primal urges and drives, especially sex and pleasure. Jung, he believed that there was something else going on, that maybe we were driven by our collective unconscious, which is full of different archetypes and different events that we all collectively seem to have across the human species. Well, Viktor Frankl thought about it a little bit differently. Now, he came along in the 1950s with his theory, and he believed that humans were actually driven by a need to find meaning in their lives. So he took a very existential approach. I'm going to give you a little bit of background into him, his theory, because I do think it's important. I feel our stories really do impact who we are and where we go, and especially professionally. So he was born in 1905 and lived till 1997. He was an Austrian neurologist, psychiatrist, and also a Holocaust survivor. Yeah, he was in the Holocaust from the years 1942 to 1945, and he was already doing psychiatry work before that. So as he went into the camps, he started to really uncover what is the difference between people who are not able to survive and people who are dying versus the people who are living, because everyone's being put under basically the same traumatic circumstance. And he really realized that you have to have meaning outside of yourself and something that felt deep and right for you in order to be able to keep going under horrific circumstances. So his theory really came about in the camps and then through his own healing process after he was released. He developed logotherapy, which is a kind of existential analysis, and really going into those bigger questions of what drives us. And he believed it was meaning. I want to share a really beautiful quote that he wrote. "What is to give light must endure burning." That really touches me in a spiritual way, because we talk so much about being the light and love of the world. And here he's also saying that, in order to be that light, you have to suffer. There has to be a balance. His PhD dissertation was called Unconscious God. And he was referring to our hidden relationship with a hidden God. Ultimately, he believed that each of us have to go deep inside ourselves and connect with Notic, which is our spiritual unconscious. So for many people throughout history, we've gotten our meaning from our faith, from God, from these bigger concepts outside of ourselves. And let's take a look at that, because we've defined God really differently depending on who you are, where you come from, and what your background is. But overall, God is typically described as this throughout most religions. God is all-knowing, has unlimited power, is present everywhere, is all good and all loving. And now those last two are up for debate depending on what you believe. But usually the first four, all-knowing, powerful, and present everywhere, it's pretty consistent. And then we also know that there's this bad in the world. There's this evil somehow. And if you've ever taken an existential philosophy class, you probably realize that the above definition gets really messy and has a lot of major logical flaws when we try and put other things together, such as what we know about science and evolution. It's been really messy, and it's been a problem that people have been trying to figure out for a long time, how this is all working. And, so a brief history on God. A few thousand years ago and before, we were a pretty polytheistic bunch, which means we believed in many gods. That's right, many gods. That was the popular belief. Well, that actually broke down into two categories. We have the soft polytheists and the hard polytheists. Now, the soft polytheists, they believed that it wasn't really separate gods. It was just different aspects of the same God, different archetypes of the same God, and also natural forces that they were observing around them. But the hard polytheists believed in distinct, separate gods and beings. There's just no way around it. They're definitely distinct. So it's really interesting because we kind of have a unity theory and soft polytheism, and then we have kind of like a separated theory of hard polytheism, where things are really separate. And that's a theme, as you'll notice in these shows, unity versus separateness. So Judaism comes along, and they're like, one God, there's only one God, people, and that really takes hold, and now we have most major religions just believing in one God, monotheism. Well, now that we've defined God, done a really brief history of our different definitions of God and how we've conceptualized God, one or many, what if there is a new definition of God? A form of higher consciousness that we can all agree on. Well, there's a really interesting theory out, and a lot of prominent scientists are backing it up because they're seeing that this is true on a lot of different levels, and it's called the conscious universe theory. Originally, this idea was called panpsychism, which is an ancient belief that is the single binding unity behind the diversity in all that exists in the universe. Kind of a complete conscious universe that's all-knowing, all-powerful, present everywhere, because it's just our universe, and that is ultimately all good and loving. Wow. Science and spirituality coming together for the first time. Energy, it's there. We know it's there. Science is proving that. And we even have receptors in our brain to pick up on those things too. So, wow. If our universe is conscious, perhaps the universe is the form of higher consciousness we've just traditionally been calling God. Pretty awesome. And if you want to take it a step further, if you've been watching my other shows, if the universe is conscious and we can tap into our collective unconsciousness through meditation, after we've cleared some of that baggage and static in our brain and our body, work through that trauma and really develop that connection to our energetic self and to the energy around us, we can be an active member of life's flow. And that's really the ultimate goal of reaching higher consciousness, is you're no longer separate from life. You're now a part of life, and you can feel it flowing through you, and you just know what's right when and what's needed, and things are easy. When we're resisting and we believe that we're separate from everyone and the universe, and energetically and physically, things become really rigid and there's a lot of resistance, and resistance really is the ultimate root of suffering. But wow, pretty big stuff. And a reminder for everyone watching in the show, these are theories. Please believe what you want to believe. That's the best thing you can do, is to be a critical consumer for yourself. I love to fact check, and I even look up like the opposing opinion on some of this stuff. It's pretty interesting what's out there. So please do the research yourself, find your own conclusions, because ultimately it's always up to you and what you want to believe. All right, so next week I want to cover an interesting topic. Why do bad things happen? You know, if God, the universe, is allegedly all good and all loving, what's with the bad stuff? What's with the challenges? What's with the trauma? What's with the isolation and pain? So we're going to dive deep into that next week, and I hope you all will join us for the ride. All right, I don't see any questions or comments, but you do have probably another minute of the show while I just make a quick announcement about our spiritual support group for Millennials, which is coming up October 12th. It's all on Meetup. There's a pretty lengthy description about what we're doing, and just to give you a brief description right now, we're going to be talking a lot about things that I'm talking about in this show, but in a more supportive environment where we can really dive deep, and people who have personal questions or things like that can be addressed, and we can kind of come together as a collective community and build that support for each other, along with learning these really important tools and topics where we can really grow and heal and move past our own baggage and like get out of our own way. So that'd be really great. All right, I don't see any other questions or comments. I am going to be away the next 2 weekends. I'm actually at 2 3-day back-to-back conferences. So I will still be posting the show at 10 a.m. Mountain Time for you all watching, and definitely feel free to comment and ask questions on the post itself. I'm always happy to answer anything. I'm just assuming that things are pretty clear. People haven't had a lot of questions. I'm really happy about that. I'm really excited to present this information. I think it can be really life-changing when you put all of the pieces together through this whole show. It's like really empowering, because we really do have the power to heal and change and grow and live our dreams. All right, take care, everybody.